Ladies and gentlemen, the word dialogue is often repeated, but it seems to mean different things to different people, as well as to the countries they represent. And I am first grateful to the Latvian Institute of International Affairs, to you, Mr. Spruns, and to the partners. Then we have the occasion today to discuss the security issues which are important for us here in Latvia and important for the region and important for Europe, but I would say also for the transatlantic union. The challenges which our countries, our region and our world face can be divided into two groups. Those who are dangerous and those who are existential. And I will first deal with existential threats. COVID-19 has focused our minds on biological threats to humanity. Pandemics are not unusual, and this will not be the last pandemic. The Spanish flu 100 years ago is estimated to have killed about 50 million people from a much less populated planet. Pandemics are a biological threat to mankind, but not the only one. There are also countries which are developing or maintaining biological weapons. There are also another example, a constant growth of medical conditions which are resistant to antibiotics. Also, the biological threats remains, and the COVID-19 crisis already reminded us of these threats. And during the COVID crisis, some have suggested that the nuclear weapon proliferation and the threat to the use of nuclear weapons has been reduced as a risk. In my view, this is not so. The risk of nuclear weapons getting into the hands of suicidal terrorists is not negligible. Furthermore, some countries covet the influence nuclear weapons provides. Logically, proliferation will lead to greater risks and must be tackled. British Prime Minister Johnson spoke eloquently at the UN General Assembly about the challenge of global warming. I will not go to that today, but will only point out that the global warming increases the risks presented by the earlier challenges I have already mentioned. Instead, I want to draw your attention to another forthcoming risk, one that I consider to be especially important. In recent years, we have seen innovations which, through global social platforms and increasing use of artificial intelligence, make it possible to influence and manipulate human thoughts and actions more effectively. Thus, human autonomy and free will of personality is endangered. This is particularly dangerous when combined with disinformation, or more precisely, the malicious use of information for commercial or political purposes. The COVID crisis has highlighted the need continuously to strengthen the resilience of countries and societies, which are highly vulnerable to all kinds of disinformation. There is a need to strengthen public resilience by raising awareness of disinformation, by strengthening independent and pluralistic media, by involvement of civil society, and by teaching social media literacy. Combating disinformation that creates serious harm to society while protecting and strengthening freedom of expression and data privacy in the digital world is an extremely complex challenge. The lines between freedom of speech, accountability, and censorship are thin and fragile. The freedom of expression as a universal human right can be limited only in extreme cases. I speak on democratic societies. Such limitations should not be managed by the global internet platforms, by algorithms, or artificial intelligence. Instead, in democratic societies, this function should be exercised only by democratically mandated, accountable, and responsible institutions. The main challenge for the world in the coming decades will be whether artificial intelligence or humans control decisions. When individual scientists and environmental activists began to express concerns about the climate issues in the 1990s, few listened to them. It takes time for public opinion and legal consciousness to mature. Today, we are grateful to them for raising the alarm early. Looking ahead, I consider the protection of autonomy of human thought to be the most important task for the legal policy in the coming decades. To deal with these complex issues, the countries of the world will have to work together, despite our different ethical and political perspectives. This brings me back to dialogue and why cooperation is not always easy because of the dangers we perceive. Looking from Riga, the Zapad 21 exercise merely confirms our suspicion that Russia is preparing its troops for a possible attack to the Baltic states. 200,000 troops involved, but no Western observers permitted, is not good for mutual trust. Nor is the occupation of Georgian and Ukrainian territory. The annexation of Crimea breaches international law and has not even been recognized by President Putin's new best friend, President Lukashenko. I have so far not mentioned the People's Republic of China. Its growing economic and military power is a source of concern to the whole Asia-Pacific region and beyond. We spoke extensively on China in the last NATO summit in Brussels in June this year. Even the best allies do not always find it easy to cooperate. The transatlantic bond, which has brought peace to Europe since the Second World War, has recently suffered some shocks. Brexit was most unwelcomed surprise. Then the America First attitude of President Trump, followed more recently by the abrupt withdrawal from Afghanistan, and now a diplomatic row over the Australian, British and American submarine deal at the expense of France, have set commentators busy. This is, however, nothing new. NATO and the European Union have weathered many storms in the past and can look forward to many more. As for the transatlantic link in NATO's Article 5, it is perhaps one of the very few things about which US Republicans and Democrats are of one mind. NATO is not about to break up. France will not withdraw from the Asia-Pacific region, which is home for 1.5 million French citizens. The European Union will hold together and continue to look for a strategic autonomy aspect to its role in the world. This will be beneficial to both Europe and NATO, and also to all democratic countries in the world. The challenge for democracies is to show that they can deal with as many dangers and challenges better than autocracies. The response to COVID-19 has not been as good as we would all have wished, but we are slowly getting to grips with this challenge. When it comes to climate change, we run the risk of seeing the world's biggest economies playing a game of chicken. Which country or grouping can keep polluting longer and thus increase its economic advantage in short term, but at the risk of global disaster? We are not far from the outcome in this way. In COP26 in Glasgow, the conference may show us if democracies and authoritarian countries can cooperate for the common good of the whole world. President Biden's Summit for Democracy is a good thing, but the world's democracies alone will not stop climate change. Digital transformation and artificial intelligence pose new risks which are as serious as climate change. Security threats in cyberspace are increasing. Therefore, in parallel with technological developments, we must work actively to define new legal principles. I think this is really crucial. On the one hand, these principles should help us make the best use of opportunities, and on the other, to avoid the risks and damage to human rights and freedoms. At the same time, we must not forget the biological threats or the dangers posed by nuclear weapons. They will not go away. Latvia is committed to meeting the goals of good governance that are crucial for respect of all human rights, democratic principles, and the rule of law. It remains to be seen whether the world can unite behind at least some of these principles in order to face our common existential threats together. Thank you for your attention. I think we can discuss also together the future of Europe as a global actor, as a global player, the problem of so-called strategic autonomy, which is all linked with coping with this global existential damages. How Europe will, how Europe should react to that. Thank you very much.